To get his thoughts, I'm joined now by the Conservative MP, Ben Bradley. Mr. Bradley, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us today. Firstly, your reaction to this announcement today by the DUP that they won't be supporting the Prime Minister's deal?
I don't think it's any surprise, to be honest. It seems after weeks of pretty intense negotiation, they've not been able to make the ground. Certainly from private conversations, it hasn't really seemed like anything has been moving forward, so not surprised at all by that, to be honest. And I do think that will be a barrier in terms of getting Brexiteer votes for the deal.
If parliamentarians vote for something that she has been against ever since the beginning, or something that the Labour Party has suggested, then can she really stay in her job?
Well, to be honest, we're in a position now, the Prime Minister said 120 odd times we're going to leave on the 29th of March, and then last week she voted for delay. I think part of the challenge within Parliament and in terms of where we go from here is that trust has broken down. And actually, how do we move beyond this vote? How do we even make a decision about how we're going to vote when there is no clear plan B in terms of what happens afterwards?
I mean, if you think that trust is broken down, should she stay in her job? What do you think?
Well, to be honest, I met with her on Wednesday, and I've had countless conversations with colleagues in the build-up to that meeting to gauge what it would take to get the deal over the line, having voted for it for the first time last week in order to try and leave on the 29th, reluctantly voted for it. And the overwhelming feedback from those colleagues was actually, if we are going to vote for this deal, we need to be absolutely certain that the second phase is going to go very differently to the first. And actually, that means she probably can't lead us into it.
Yeah, because Graham Brady reports today that he's the chair of the 1922 committee, spoke to the Prime Minister on Monday. A lot of backlash from many of your Conservative Party colleagues, all asking for her to go.
Well, it's an incredibly frustrating time. Actually, as a parliamentary party, as a government, what we really want is leadership and direction. It's amazing that we're in a position where we're asking Parliament what it wants to see from Brexit a week before the deadline, when we've been doing this for 2 years. If we were going to go and ask that question, now is not the time. We should have been doing this years ago. And actually, at this point, the clear promise we have made to the electorate, my constituency voted 71% leave. We told them that we would leave on the 29th of March and that no deal was better than a bad deal. If we're in a position where this deal is not going to pass, we should be leaving.
What is your position in terms of the way you'll vote next week? Where do you stand?
I'm not totally clear yet, to be honest. I mean, I voted against it in January on the basis that we had the time and the political capital to go and seek changes and improvements. I think that was right. We got some improvements, not as much as I would like. I voted for it the second time on the basis I felt that was the only way to secure our leaving on the 29th as we promised. It seemed the alternative was long extension. But at the minute, it's not really clear what the alternative is. I think both sides of the argument, whether it's Brexiteers thinking no deal might still be an option, whether it's Remainers thinking that long extension or softer Brexit might still be an option, the fact that both of those still seem to be on the table means I think it's likely the deal will lose by more than it did a few weeks ago. I need to see really what the facts are from Europe over the weekend before I make that decision.
You spoke about the breakdown in trust and things being confusing. I guess what is also confusing to many voters is the fact that you have Conservative parliamentarians who 1 week the deal's brought to them, they voted in favour of it, and then a few weeks later they voted against it. I mean, how is that even a thing? How does that work?
Well, I think it's a very different scenario now. I voted for the deal, though I didn't like it. I've never liked it, on the basis that I made a promise to my constituents we would leave on the 29th. The deal is the same. But the alternatives have changed. So I made a promise to my electorate we would leave on the 29th of March. The deal last week, I felt, was a choice between the deal or long extension to Article 50. The deal was the opportunity to leave on the 29th of March, and with a new leader and direction, we can deal with some of the challenges within it later. Actually, from the discussions that have happened since then, and what's happening this weekend in Europe, it seems actually that those different alternatives, apart from the deal, aren't as clear-cut as we thought. We've had Macron saying that it's this deal or no deal. We've had the Prime Minister herself saying she won't seek extension beyond 30th of June. What does that mean? Does that mean clean break from Europe on the 30th of June? I'm trying to weigh up in my own mind exactly what those alternative outcomes are, because if there is still an opportunity to leave on March the 29th, as we promised and have promised for many years now, then that's what we should do.
I mean, can you see why voters are confused and angry? Did the Prime Minister have a point when she addressed the nation earlier on this week to say that effectively you've got parliamentarians playing games?
I think there are a lot of parliamentarians with very strong views. Like the country, the views on what the specific details of leaving should be are very mixed. And we'll see if we have indicative votes this week. You know, if it's the multiple choice A, B, C, D, I doubt if you'll get a majority for anything, which is indicative of where we are as a parliament and as a country, actually. But we've got to consider the details of what exactly is on the table, what the alternatives are, what is the exact choice that I am voting on, and that's not just about the details of the deal, it's also about the details of what else is on the table in contrast to that, what is the alternative to that deal, which is changing all the time. And the fact that that is still changing and not tied down at this point a week before we're supposed to leave, absolutely sets out the challenge, and there's so many problems with the way this has been handled from the beginning.
You spoke about the Prime Minister's future and the fact that, you know, she shouldn't necessarily be the person to carry on the second phase of the negotiations. I mean, when do you believe is the appropriate time for Theresa May to go?
I mean, that's down to her. We no longer have any mechanism as a parliamentary party to decide that. The party supported her back in November, and since that time, you know, it's not something that I have discussed, but I think it's been openly discussed by pretty much everybody within the party over the last week or so, and we have to now have that conversation. For me, last week it was a case of, in order to get this deal over the line, she was going to have to agree to go in the summer. Some would argue if we end up having a no-deal Brexit, then she should stick around and deal with the consequences of the decisions. It's really a balancing act. I personally think that if we're going to have a second phase of this, if we're going to pass a deal and we're going to move on to have to negotiate a future relationship, she's not going to have to be able to be the person that does that. She's going to have to set a date in the summer, probably, in order for us to have time to choose. But there's still so many variables. This is the problem with the whole scenario. It's not quite clear exactly what the choice is and exactly where that leaves us.
Ben Bradley, many thanks indeed for your time. Thank you.